Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. Here for another book review. The second book completed in 2020. Something I don't usually read, but this is called From Eden to Exile by a man called David Rohl. Now this was recommended to me by a friend who is a massive fan of ancient history, and I'm the massive fan of modern history and sometimes his knowledge completely is far removed from my knowledge of modern and his knowledge of ancient. He recommended this to me because based on a recent conversation we had about Dark Emu, which I remember I read late last year, and the author in that book was trying to turn the agreed history and science on its head to come to a new conclusion. And that's kind of what David Rohl does very, very well, is he takes history, and especially biblical history, so stories from the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and tries to place them more in the real world and place real known historical figures in those biblical characters, and to try and tell those Bible stories that we probably all know, whether you're a follower of any religion or not, but those Bible stories that we know, and try to place them in and around some kind of historical fact. And that's what David Rohl does very well. It is not usually my thing, but it is a very engagingly written piece of history. I'm not even sure whether the rest of the historical community actually agrees with David Rohl's version of history. So I'm not sure whether it's challenged or whether it's accepted. I don't think it's become accepted. He's got quite a few books out there. This one is From Eden to Exile, the epic history of the people of the Bible. So it looks at Genesis in particular, and goes all the way through Genesis with the first peoples, through the flood and Moses taking his people through the Red Sea, and all of those stories that we know, and it tries to place them in some kind of historical, factual place. Whether it works is completely up to you. It sounds solid. There's research involved here, there's lots of references involved here, but really I think the difficulty people have with a rewriting of this particular period of history is not that it's incorrect, is that the agreed history is wrapped up in all of this other culture and religion and belief and faith. And when you wrap up history in those kinds of things, it's very hard when someone challenges that old agreed version of history. It's very hard to come to a new agreement about a new history. And that may be one of the reasons why David Rohl has never gained very wide agreement on his version of history, and it could be because of all that other baggage that comes with writing about biblical texts and the history of that period. But as an engaging read, it is very engaging. For someone who I have studied history in the past, but modern history, but even from that period, even looking at it just from a pure historical point of view, it's a really engaging read. He really does write very well in small snippets with references and source material, lots of photos in here as well. This period of history, though, really isn't for me, and that's why I'm only going to give this book 3 stars. As much as David Rohl writes really well, and he's writing in a very interesting way, it's still not my period of history that I feel comfortable with. I get lost in the endless list of kings and their offspring in names that I have trouble remembering or pronouncing. And the same with the constantly changing names of places, because a lot of the places being discussed don't actually exist anymore. So it's hard to place a civilization or a city or a people in an actual place when that place doesn't exist in the modern context. So trying to remember all that and keep all that together for me has always been my struggle with ancient history. But if ancient history is your thing and you want to know more about the biblical stories and how they fit into an ancient historical context, then I can highly recommend David Rohl's books. I have 3 on my table. I don't think I'm going to read any more, but that is just my dislike of ancient history texts. If ancient history is your thing, I can highly recommend David Rohl. I have quite a few friends that are big fans of ancient history and have read multiple books of David Rohl's, and they find them so entertaining that they don't care whether the science is or whether the history is accurate or not, because he tells such a great story. And really that's the job of historians anyway, is to tell great stories. And from all accounts and everyone else that I've spoken to about this author, he tells great stories about the people, the places, the wars, the love affairs in an ancient historical context. And it just isn't for me, but that's okay. If it is for you, grab it. David Rohl, From Eden to Exile, or many of his other books available wherever you find your books. That's pretty much it. 3 stars, From Eden to Exile. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.